WBC president Mauricio Suleiman has come out and announced that Deontay Wilder's next fight will be against mandatory challenger Alexander Povetkin. He will not be permitted to have another voluntary defense before then. So all those of you who are worried that Deontay Wilder / Al Heyman are going to duck this Povetkin fight, it's not happening. They are being forced to fight Povetkin. And I believe Suleiman in this instance, because of the fact that he's announced this immediately after Wilder's latest victory, his successful WBC title defense over Johann Dupas. So I believe them, and I think they are going to force this through. Now, what's going to be interesting about this particular fight is where the fight is going to take place. Because we know that Povetkin's people have got serious money. I'm not sure that there is any promotional outfit currently in the world at this particular time that could outbid Povetkin's people in a purse bid situation. I'm not sure there's anyone. They have got absolutely obscene amounts of money behind them. They were able to put in a ridiculously high bid to get Vladimir Klitschko to come out of Germany and fight Povetkin in Russia for that unification. If they've got enough money to get Vladimir out of Germany, when you know he wanted to have it in Germany, they've got enough money to force him out of Germany, then they've definitely got enough money to force Wilder out of America to fight in Russia. Unless Al Heyman's got some other crazy backers that we don't know about who are just waiting in the wings to also bid incredibly silly money to stage the fight in the US, then it's likely that this fight is going to happen in Russia. And when you look at the viewing figures, I've done a separate video about this, but when you look at the viewing figures for Deontay Wilder against Johann Dupas, I can't see how it's financially viable for any potential backer of Al Heyman to be putting in a bid which could rival or top the bid that Povetkin's people will be putting in. On network television, free-to-air television, Wilder only did about 2.3, 2.4 million views. So if he's fighting Povetkin on pay-per-view, it's going to be a fraction of that. There is no way that I can see anyway. Maybe some of you guys know different. Maybe you know some different factors that I should be taking into account or that I'm not privy to, which may swing a purse bid situation in Deontay Wilder / Al Heyman's favor. But at this point in time, I can't think how they're going to win that purse bid. They're going to try it. They're going to go to the negotiating table and try to thrash out a deal with Povetkin's people. But they would have to offer him something extremely attractive to make him decide to do a deal rather than go to a purse bid. The only thing they might do, right, the only way they might be able to entice Povetkin out of Russia is if they offer him an unusually high split of the purse. Because normally with mandatory challengers, they get a set amount of the purse. I'm not sure what it is with the WBC. It's probably around 20% there or thereabouts. So 80% of the fight purse will go to Wilder and about 20% to Povetkin. Now, if Wilder's team were able to talk to the WBC and talk to Povetkin's people and say, look, we'll give you 40%, or we'll give you 50% as long as the fight can happen in the US. Maybe, possibly, Povetkin's people may say, all right, we'll do it. But even then, I find that highly unlikely because I don't know what Povetkin's going to get paid in Russia either way, because, yeah, he's going to get maybe 20% of the fight purse, but then he's probably going to get money on top of that with Russian TV. God knows what sponsorships he's going to have and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I can see the fight happening in Russia and Wilder's people and Al Heyman losing out there. But let me know what you think. Do you think the fight's going to happen in Russia? Do you think it's going to happen in the US? And will it matter? Personally, I think it will. because Deontay Wilder, although he's had quite a lot of fights now, I think he might be closing in on 40 fights. He's still inexperienced in big fights. He had that big fight against Stavern, which was a big fight on paper, but in actuality, it didn't really draw that much of a crowd. It really didn't draw that much media attention, relatively speaking. His fight against Johan Dupar probably was actually a bigger fight in terms of the amount of media attention it drew. Maybe not nationally, but definitely surrounding Wilder himself, because his fight against Dupar and his previous fight before that were both in his hometown or his home state of Alabama. So obviously there was lots of local media about him, you know, around him, making a fuss and all that kind of thing. So he definitely felt some type of pressure, particularly in his previous fight before he fought Dupar. He definitely felt pressure, and I think that contributed to why that performance was so poor. I'm struggling to think of the guy's name he actually fought. The guy who Ariola knocked out in one round. His name escapes me at the moment, but you guys know who I'm talking about. He looked very, very poor in that fight, and I think a lot of it was to do with nerves, fighting in front of his hometown crowd for the first time. Against Dupar, the nerves were a lot more settled, but going over to Russia in hostile territory, in by far the biggest event he will have ever been involved in his life. How are Deontay Wilder's nerves going to hold up in that situation? In front of, God knows what, 50,000 Russians? That's going to be an intimidating atmosphere. There's going to be a lot of pressure. Then again, maybe there won't be pressure. Maybe he'll react well to it, because it's not his hometown fans, but it's still a huge media event. He'll be getting interviewed, you know, a ridiculous amount of times. And God knows what type of shenanigans they might try and pull over there to swing the fight in Povetkin's favor. All types of backstage shenanigans, because according to a French individual who I spoke to, right, big up Thibaut Raylat, he says that he spoke to, or he went to Johan Dupar's Facebook page, and Dupar was telling people that the Wilder team were basically urine testing Dupar virtually every day during training camp. And there were instances where they told him, you know, pee in the bottle, and Dupar was unable to pee in the bottle, and they stopped him training until he was able to pee in the bottle. So was that going on for Deontay Wilder as well? Who knows? But Dupar seemed to think that it was kind of dirty tactics by the Wilder side, that they were, you know, kind of trying to mess him around a little bit and make sure that he was unsettled going into the fight. Vladimir Klitschko did something very similar to this in the Kubrat Pulev fight. He had Pulev tested a ridiculous amount of times before the fight, and Vladimir Klitschko was not tested at all before the fight. He only ever gets tested after the fight, which is pretty much, you know, useless, really. Getting tested after the fight and not before the fight, you might as well not have any drug testing at all. Anyone that knows anything about PEDs will tell you that. So, yeah, you know, Wilder's people tried some shenanigans, apparently, according to Dupar, behind the scenes. And maybe Povetkin's team will also try shenanigans if Wilder goes over there to Russia to fight Povetkin to unsettle him. And again, like I say, Wilder is inexperienced at that level. Will he be able to deal with those shenanigans? Because Wilder, let's get it straight. I think Wilder is over-criticized by the majority of boxing fans, and I think they don't realize how strong his strengths really are. But there's no question that, with the exception of the Stavern fight, Wilder has been spoon-fed for his entire career. He's never been in hostile territory, unless you can call fighting Audley Harrison in the UK hostile territory. I mean, they cheered when Harrison got knocked out. That's about how hostile that was. So he's been spoon-fed his whole career. He's never had to go into hostile territory. Certainly nothing like it would be going to fight Povetkin in Russia in front of God knows how many cheering, screaming, intimidating Russian fans. How will he cope with that? Who knows? Drop your comments and your musings below in the comment section and let me know how you feel about everything I talked about in the video. And personally, when it comes to picking this fight, if this fight somehow happens in the US, I'm very tempted to pick Deontay Wilder to win this fight on points. People think, the majority of people seem to think Wilder is absolute garbage. The first time he steps in there with anyone that can do anything, he's going to get knocked out. Well, they said that before the Stavern fight. And I was telling people, look, don't be surprised if Wilder wins that fight on points. Nobody listened. What happened? Wilder won the fight on points. People are honing in only on Wilder's weaknesses and totally ignoring his strengths. And yes, he does have strengths. If you can't see that he has strengths, you need to get glasses. Yeah. And Alexander Povetkin does have weaknesses. Yes, he's been blasting people away in his past few fights. Are any of those fighters he's been knocking out lately anything like Deontay Wilder in stature or style? No, not even remotely close to Deontay Wilder in stature or style or ability. He's been fighting guys like Manuel Char, nothing like Deontay Wilder. Mike Perez, nothing like Deontay Wilder. And who's the other guy he fought? Carlos Takam, also nothing like Deontay Wilder. And I want you to do something before I close out this video. Go on YouTube and look up Alexander Povetkin against Carlos Takam. Big up Mo, by the way. You know who you are. Big up Mo. You'll know why I'm bigging him up. But go look at Alexander Povetkin against Carlos Takam. Go watch that fight and go watch the first few rounds. Carlos Takam is like a 6'1", 6'2" heavyweight. So he's around the same height as Povetkin. And he was sticking a jab on Povetkin and moving around the ring early in that fight. Now you tell me if Povetkin didn't look clumsy and not that effective at cutting off the ring and closing Takam down when Takam was sticking and moving early in the fight. And Takam is a 250-pound man who's only 6'1", 6'2". A guy of those dimensions is not going to be able to stick and move anywhere near as effectively as a guy like Deontay Wilder, who's only about 225 and he's 6'7", with a much longer reach, much bigger puncher than Carlos Takam, much faster on his feet, much faster with his hands. That right there, the Carlos Takam fight, going back and looking at that fight again, that really made me think, you know what, this is a fight Deontay Wilder can really actually win on points. He can beat Povetkin on points. He could possibly knock Povetkin out, but given the fact that Vladimir Klitschko wasn't able to do it, and Vladimir Klitschko hits at least as hard as Wilder, if not harder, then yeah, I can't see him knocking Povetkin. It's definitely not beyond the realms of possibility, but I wouldn't go for him to beat Povetkin by knockout. I'd probably say he'll box similar to the Stavern fight. It will be more difficult than the Stavern fight, more than likely, but I think he could pull it off on points if the fight takes place in the US. And I've got several reasons for thinking that, which I'm not going to go into in this video because it's going to be too long. But if the fight happens in the US, I'm very, very tempted to pick Wilder on points. If the fight happens in Russia, I'm going to lean towards Povetkin, because an inexperienced champion like Wilder, who's been given everything on the plate in his career with the exception of the Stavern fight, he's never had to deal with hostile territory and all that kind of stuff. You don't know what kind of shenanigans they'll pull behind the scenes. Yeah, if it's in Russia, I'll probably pick Povetkin. I might change my opinion on that, but I'll probably pick Povetkin if it's in Russia. If it's in the US, I'll be very, very tempted to pick Wilder on points. And by the way, wherever this fight happens, or particularly if it happens in the US though, I think if Alexander Povetkin's going to win, he's going to win by knockout inside 5 rounds. If Wilder's going to win, as I've said, I think Wilder will win on points. I think those are the two most likely methods of victory for each fighter. Either Wilder on points or Povetkin inside 5 rounds. Again, people are going to point out the fact that Povetkin's been scoring knockouts after the 5th round. The Takam knockout was late in the fight. But again, those are guys who are short, who it's going to be much easier, who is much easier for Povetkin to reach. Deontay Wilder has got a tremendous amount of energy, even late in a fight. We know that now about Wilder. This guy's got stamina, and he's got punching power late, and he's still got speed late, and he's got work rate. The longer the fight goes, I think the more Wilder will be able to start reading Povetkin's movements and timing him. And I think the more frustrated and hypnotized and dizzy Povetkin will become by Wilder's erratic, unorthodox movement, the way he jumps in and out, he big gangly 6-7 inch guy, leaning back from punches and all that kind of stuff, and his frenetic movement. When Wilder starts punching, he really lets shots go in big volleys of punches. And I just think the longer it goes, the more that's going to start to get to Povetkin, not just physically, but psychologically. I think it will start to tire him out, those kind of attacks. So if Povetkin's going to win, I think he's going to do it early, within 5. If Wilder wins, I'm saying points, but a stoppage is definitely not out of the question when you got the kind of punching power and work rate, and when you let your hands go the way Deontay Wilder does. So yeah, sorry about the length of this video. It's longer than I wanted it to be, but I had a lot to talk about, and there's a lot there for you guys to chew on. So let me know how you feel in the comment section below about everything I mentioned in this video. It's Hatman, I'm out.